How's it going, guys? Akira here, and today I'll be talking about the Switch 2. So now, 2 weeks into getting the Switch 2, first impression, I feel like I've had enough time to dabble with most of the things, not all, but most of the things the Switch 2 has to offer, right? As you guys can see here, I put some pretty cool covers on the Joy-Cons of Pomperin. But yeah, anyways, moving on. Yeah, here are my first impressions and my thoughts on the console. Let's get started with you know, this marks history as the first time I've ever camped out and waited a midnight release for a console. Right. I was too young, as you guys, I've mentioned this so many times, so as you guys know, I was too young to experience the sixth generation. So like Dreamcast, PS2, GameCube, OG Xbox. So obviously I was like a toddler, right? So obviously, that goes out of the window. I was the Nintendo DS. I got a DS Lite later in its lifespan, but I was little, right? By the time the DS Lite was already like years old. I think the DSi the DSi was already either out or was just coming out. But anyway, so obviously didn't get to experience that. I was a little kid when the Wii, the PS3, the 360 came out, and as you guys know, the Wii and the Xbox 360 are my childhood consoles from the 7th gen. But obviously, I've got those years later, years after they've come out. So didn't experience those midnight releases. Same thing with the PSP and the PS Vita applies to like the DS and the 3DS consoles I just got later on, years after they've come out. And then Wii U, my parents got it for me. I think at that time that was the closest console I've gotten to launch, which is 1 year exactly after the console came out. So I guess that was the closest to its release, 1 year after. But regardless, I was still a kid, so my parents obviously bought it for me because I was a kid, a little kid. I don't have a job. I'm not earning my own money. My main priorities go through I think at the time was I still in middle school, going to high school, something like that. I think I was like either 8th grade or 9th grade. I forget. I don't feel like doing math right now. Right, and then eventually stuff like the PS4 and the Xbox One. I got those years into years later. So pretty much every console I've gotten is years later, right? After it's come out, And then the Switch, same thing. I got the Switch in middle of 2018. So I want to say around 16 to 18 months after the console came out. That was because Smash was coming up in a few months, and Smash Ultimate came out in December of 2018. So I must have gotten that Switch in July of 2018. Right, I got it with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I think Fire Emblem Warriors was out by then. And those were the two games I got the original Switch with. And then the PS5 and the X. Well, I don't have a Series X. I don't see the need to. Right, I'm happy with my One X, my Xbox One X. It does perfectly what I want on the Xbox side of things. But the PS5, I didn't get it until 2023. I want to say, obviously because pandemic, and because it was hard to find. Right, it was hard to find. You had better time. You had a better chance of winning the lottery than finding a PS5. But that would have been the if there was no pandemic or nothing like that, that would have been the first console for me forever get at a midnight release. Camp out for it because I've always wanted to experience that. Right, I was already old enough by the time the PS5 came out to do that. You know, because as a kid, I always look at YouTube videos like game trailers and IGN and G4 TV and Screw Attack, and they're all interviewing people in the line, and it's like a party, and there's like a DJ, and everybody's waiting for the minute release of Halo 3 and the Xbox 360 and the PS3 and the Wii and GTA 4, GTA 5, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2. You know, the minute release of like the 3DS and the PS4. You know, stuff like that, like GTA 5 was one that I remember as well too. You know, stuff from like, you know, the 7th gen and then like early 8th gen. And I was like, wow, this shit just looks so hype, you know, like I want to experience this thing. But obviously I was still a little kid by then. So then by that time I was like, damn, okay, the PS5, you know, but then pandemic hit, right? So I was like, damn. So I guess the next best thing was wait for the Switch 2. And I did it just so I can experience it. Obviously it was there because, you know, nothing's gonna beat like that whole era of it being like really hype. You know, it's gone because let's say back in like the Halo 3 days on Xbox 360, you know, that was an era where everybody got those games physically. Now people just wait on their couch, wait in their bedrooms until it hits 12 and you just download it digitally, right? So yeah, so with, you know, people downloading stuff digitally now, obviously the numbers of people that would attend midnight releases are dwindling and getting smaller and smaller. So obviously, you know, the Switch 2 release, you know, I was seeing social media, oh, you know, we're lined up, but it was like 30, 40, 50 people I would see when people would post pictures of them on the line at whatever GameStop they were, whatever Best Buy they were. The ones that we were, the line was pretty long, and they actually had stock. We were worried that they were only gonna have like 20, 15, you know, maybe even like 30 consoles, but they had a lot. It went like across the parking lot, and then it went like this, right, like that. And then once it's over, there's no more street, anything to go, no more parking lot. Then it started going like that, like almost like around the block. And the guy was still able to do. So we got there like around 6, right? Daylight, you know, it's still up. The sun doesn't set till late, especially in the summer. And we were there, right? You know, and you know, we waited for the 6 hours. Once it was like, I want to say 11:10, 11:15, the employees come out. The guys behind us, one of their boys was a worker from that specific Best Buy. So that guy got off his shift at 9 or 9:30, whenever it was that they closed, and he literally went to a gas station, changed clothes, came back, and he sat with his boys behind us. And they were trying to ask him, yo, like, you know, how many consoles they have. And he's like, yo, I low-key can't tell you, man. I legit might get fired, might get in trouble, but like there's enough for you to be able to get one. And since he was behind him and he's telling him that it's enough for him to get, I'm like, okay, I guess it'll be enough for me to get, right? So I wasn't worried. So whatever, we waited, we went and got it, and blah blah blah. You know, it is. I got the Mario Kart bundle because I know I'm a huge physical release guy, but you know, I also was like, I'm not paying $80 for that, especially if I was also planning to get a Pro controller, because I don't trust the Joy-Cons, and we're gonna talk about Joy-Cons later. With the Switch 1, one of my biggest gripes about that console, and why as many people hold it as like the best console of all time, blah blah blah, there's so many problems with that console that I don't hold it as the best console of all time. Joy-Cons being one of them, and probably my biggest one. I don't know. It's just something that I've never let go of it because of how burnt I got with those Joy-Cons. Literally like 5 minutes into playing that original Switch, I got Joy-Con drift. Screw that. Screw them. Screw Nintendo. So I was like, no, let me also get a Pro controller. So I ended up getting the bundle with the digital Mario Kart copy, whatever. I guess I got the game for $50 rather than $80. So I got the $500 bundle, the Mario Kart, plus the $80 for the Pro controller. And that's what I got. Right. Went home, hooked up the console. Very easy, very simple. And yeah, it's quite a bit bigger than the original Switch. I forgot to bring the original Switch, but whatever. You know, for a size comparison. But yeah, the menus are very similar. is, if you guys indulge me here, I can show you guys. Yeah, the menus are very similar. I still have yet to, like, bring everything over here. So I don't have everything that I had in my OG Switch. I only have some stuff, but not everything. Eventually later I'm gonna bring everything from my OG Switch and I'm gonna transfer it to here. So far I was just trying stuff out. Right, I've been mostly playing Mario Kart World, because that's the only thing that seems good at the moment, right? Cyberpunk, I've already played that on the PS4. Why the heck am I gonna buy a Switch 2 copy of that if I already played it on PS4 like 3 years ago? Same thing with Street Fighter 6. I have it on PS5. Fighting games on Nintendo, yeah, right. With the horrible netcode that the Nintendo has, screw that. Etc. And then like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild remasters, blah blah blah. People shit on PS5 remasters of PS4 games all the time, but then Nintendo's doing the same exact thing. Switch 2 remasters of Switch 1 games, whatever. So it's just mainly Mario Kart World, and then trying out whatever upgrades the original Switch games that I have here. It's beautiful. The screen is beautiful. I have some gripes with the console, but the console, it feels like the Switch I've always wanted. I've always thought the Switch was too weak. Even back in 2017, I knew it was too weak. I knew that, oh my god, it's impressive. We can get like Doom 2016 and The Witcher 3 here. But I knew that within like a year or two, it was going to be outdated. Because, dude, that Switch 1 was like slightly more powerful than an Xbox 360 and a PS3. So it's like, yeah, we're getting an Xbox 360 in 2017. Yeah. With games that at the time were barely running perfectly on a Xbox One X and a PS4 Pro. So yeah, how is that gonna turn out? But anyway, so yeah, apparently this is as powerful as a PS4 Pro, or in between a PS4 and a PS4 Pro. There was many information going around either or. I guess for argument's sake, let's just say it's in the middle of a PS4 and a PS4 Pro, just to keep it simple, right? So yeah, so there's still PS4 games coming out, so that have PS5 versions and Xbox Series X versions. So those versions should run well on Switch too. But yeah, like I said, the screen has impressed me. I like how comfortable it is. Mario Kart World, excuse me, is a lot of fun. Not Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 sucks. Mario Kart World is a lot of fun. I already like it so much better than Mario Kart 8. But yeah, and it's very similar, right, to the OS and stuff. I have not tried game chat. That's one of the things that I have not tried. And another thing that I have yet to try is, or at least get, is I want to get the SD card. But unfortunately, the SD cards, they're you have to use Express SD cards, and those are very expensive. And I want to get a 1 terabyte one, so it's worth it. I've seen people get a 256 gigabyte, and it's like, bro, all you're doing is just doubling the 256 plus the 256. You're only gonna get 500 gigabytes. I just want to get a whole terabyte, so at least by the end of the day, I have over a terabyte of storage, and that's just gonna be it's gonna be better. But yeah, but I'm waiting on that. So I guess maybe there's a sale one day of those Express SD cards, a 1 terabyte version, and I just be able to cop one. But yeah, in terms of new games and stuff that are coming out, I'm not interested in the DK one. Maybe I'll get it like used one day, like a year or two from now. But no, the next one that I'm excited for is the Kirby Air Riders one. But other than that, nothing too much I'm looking forward to on the Switch 2. I'm just gonna keep using this as a Switch Pro, Switch 1.5, because that's basically what it feels like, right? And then I tried the whole mouse control, so when you do the mouse thingy, just to scroll on the menu, whoopee, who cares? But yeah, but my main gripes is how the corporate side of thing, right? I knew they were gonna get cocky. Called it back in 2021, right? Obviously, you've seen it with the prices. You've seen it with the prices of the accessories, the accessories, the consoles, the games, and etc. Right? And their policies. Now, apparently, they have the right that you can't sue them if you have a defective unit from what I've hear and from some of the EULAs that I've seen. It basically feels like they're trying to get away. They're trying to see how much they can get away with than how much they can provide with the added value, right? And unfortunately, a lot of fanboys are eating it up, and it's like, damn, like, sure, this console is good, but it's like it has issues. Why can't we all agree and criticize those issues to improve upon them, right? By people just glazing over it and just saying nothing's wrong, everything is right, they're not gonna improve on those things that are wrong. But whatever, fanboys will be fanboys, I guess. Another thing is that there's reports of people getting Joy-Con drift. So shit, not even 2 weeks in and people are already getting like Joy-Con drift, and they seems just as bad as the Switch 1 Joy-Con drifts. So rip that. The stand is pretty cool. I like it better than the OG stand. I only ever have the launch. So the launch one is like the little stick that pops out like that. I never got anything of like the OLED or the light. So because I never saw the need to. But yeah, other than that, I'm very liking this. I like the size of it and how comfortable it is, especially compared to the first one. And the screen, obviously, going from the 2017 launch model to this, it's like the screen is like a huge difference, right? I bet I would have not been as impressed if I went from like an OLED to this, right? So because I know a lot of people are like saying the screen sucks. That's probably because it went from an OLED to this one. But other than that, yeah, I think the screen is just fine. I'm sure within a year or two they're gonna come out with an OLED model, and they're gonna come out with like a light model, So I guess if you're waiting on an OLED model, just give it like a year or two. I'm sure they're definitely gonna come out with that. But yeah, other big gripes that I have with it is obviously we talked about the prices and stuff, but I want to talk about the key card stuff. I think they're dumb. I know when people bring in the arguments, they're like, oh, but Xbox discs and PS5 discs, they also, you gotta download it from. It's like, yes and no. You'll be surprised by how many games still have the full data on the disc that you need no internet requirement. One example is Astrobot. Another example is FF16. And tons of other games have that example where the whole game is in the disc. When people obviously, they get that presumption because they hear storylines of like EA, with the sports game, and Call of Duty and blah blah blah. Obviously, because those are the games that are always in the front lines of articles. But sure, those games, whatever, they only contain like 1 gigabyte of this. But remember, those games don't make majority of the games. Majority of the games, especially on PS4 and PS5, come with the full game on the disc. Like I mentioned, Astrobot, FF16, and quite a few others that are escaping my mind, right? The key cards on Switch 2 is completely different. They don't even have nothing, not a single like gigabyte. Everything is a full internet download. So in a scenario, right, where let's say I buy, I don't know, whatever game, right? Right, let's say Sonic X Shadow Generations, right? And I don't have internet. Let's say I don't have internet connection for this, and I pop it in. I can't do anything. It's gonna be like, hey man, you gotta connect to the internet so you can download it. Nope, can't do anything. It's just weightless. Like it's just a weightless toothpick at that point, man. I might as well wipe my ass with it because it has nothing. Meanwhile, let's say for that example, right, I have a PS5 and I have no internet connection, and I have either Astrobot or FF16, and I plop it in, it will install the game from the disc, because in those two examples of those two games, they have the full game on the disc, no internet required. You see a difference? Yes, I know not all games are like that, but at least the PS5 has a good, and when I mean good, I mean like a good amount of games that are like that you could install offline. The key cards on the Switch, absolutely not even a chance, right? So that's my main problem with it. And it's unfortunate because as the years are going to go by, you're going to see more and more of those key cards, because more and more third-party publishers are going to be like, why am I gonna spend money on the 64 gigabyte discs if, let's say, my game is like a 20 gigabyte game, and it's much cheaper to go with the key card? So screw it, and it's gonna screw us all over. So I'm calling it just like how I called it that Nintendo's gonna get cocky back in 2021, and they're gonna get cocky when the Switch 2 is coming out. I'm calling it right now. You're gonna see even more and more, like people think we're gonna see less key cards and more like actual games. I think it's the opposite. I think we're just gonna see it's just gonna rev up the amount of key cards we're gonna see, and we're gonna see more and more key cards and less of the actual cards that have the full game on it. I'm calling it right now. But yeah, other than that, those are my main gripes that I can think of right now. Of the Switch 2, what I like and what I don't like. I think I pretty much covered everything. If not, I'll probably make another video, maybe 1 month later with the console. Who knows? But for now, this is my two week in of playing the Switch 2, and yeah, I already like it better than the OG Switch, but it still has a lot of issues that hopefully they will be fixed. Knowing Nintendo, they're not gonna fix them. But yeah, a very good console, but with a lot of issues. Overall, I'll give it a 7.5. I'll give it an 8, a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, 7.5 out of 10 seems good enough for me. Obviously, this is just the first 2 weeks, right? As the games go on, as the years go on and games come out, and maybe they fix some stuff, I'm sure the number will go higher. But as of now, it's a 7.5 out of 10. I'm still gonna keep playing it, man. I've been playing this a lot. I like it. Like I said, I like it. It just has issues. But yeah, other than that, guys, peace out.